Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS NBA Wednesday. We got 8 games on the board. As far as Tuesday night, I had a good one. Went 3-1 on the bets I posted on the site. 4-1 if you count West Virginia money line, but I forgot to post that one on the site. So 3-1. The one that lost was Pelicans team total under. That was one of my more confident ones too. That was actually probably my most confident bet. Lost in the final seconds there. But as a whole, solid Tuesday night. Let's keep the positivity rolling. NBA Wednesday, let's do it.
I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points?
I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. First up is Utah on the road in Washington, and honestly, I'm not going to spend any time talking about this. We'll talk about it on the live show, maybe when we have a better indication of who's playing in the game. As of right now, Markkanen's listed as questionable, John Collins listed as questionable, Jordan Clarkson listed as questionable. I'd say it's pretty clear Utah is not in the business of winning basketball games right now, so why would I spend any time breaking this one down? On the Washington side, on the Washington side, Jordan Poole listed as questionable, Kaishan George listed as questionable, Malcolm Brogdon listed as questionable. So yeah, I'm going to skip this one. We'll talk about it on the live show, 4 p.m. next. Update. So right after I recorded that, we got some injury updates in this game. Nobody's playing for Utah. The pieces I just listed as questionable are all out. No Jordan Clarkson, no John Collins, no Walker Kessler, no Lauri Markkanen, no Colin Sexton. So nobody's playing for the Jazz. On the Wizards side, no Malcolm Brogdon. Kaishan George listed as questionable. Rashawn Holmes listed as questionable. So, yeah, I'm just going to pass on this one. Next game. Minnesota on the road in Charlotte. T-Wolves injury report. I mean, they're on a back-to-back, so we won't have an updated injury report till later. But I got Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert listed as questionable. Gobert is scheduled to return this game, so we'll wait and see. I mean, it's they don't always come back on their scheduled return date, but he is scheduled to return for this game. Julius Randle I'm listing as questionable because he's been banged up recently. On the Charlotte side, we got Nurkic listed as probable, still no Okogie. So after recording this, it's now been confirmed that Rudy Gobert is out. So you're about to see me break down the game, and I mentioned a couple times, if Rudy Gobert plays, obviously this was recorded before he's been ruled out. So just ignore that. Rudy Gobert not coming back for this game. So before we get into this one, I did mention that Minnesota's on a back-to-back. On the season on 0 days rest, Minnesota's 6-5 against the spread, 6-5 straight up. So it doesn't really move the needle much either way. So what do we think about this matchup? And right off the bat, we know we're talking about a top 10 defense in Minnesota against a bottom 10 offense in Charlotte. I mean, maybe even a bottom 5 offense. They're actually dead last in offensive efficiency in the last 10 games. So a great defense against one of the worst offenses in the NBA. Over the course of the season, this has been under City on both sides. Check this out. Minnesota against bad offenses. On the year, T-Wolves against bottom 5 offenses, 1-5 to the under. Against bottom 10 offenses, 5-11 to the under. And Charlotte against good defenses on the season against top 5 defenses, 1-8 to the under. Against top 10 defenses, 7-15 to the under. So right off the bat, we got a lot of patterns pointing towards an under bet here. Now we're talking about a Charlotte offense that's taking way less 3-point shots than they were a month ago. In fact, in their last 10 games, they're 6th in shot frequency in the paint. So Charlotte's been attacking the interior a lot. Obviously, that plays directly into the strength of this Minnesota defense. I mean, especially if Rudy Gobert's returning, which we don't know for sure yet. But if Gobert's back, I mean, Charlotte attacking the interior, that plays right into Minnesota's strength. And check this out, more patterns pointing towards an under here. Charlotte against good interior defenses against the top 5, 2-8 to the under. Against the top 10, 7-14 to the under. So even more patterns pointing towards an under bet here. Now, if you do plan on betting Charlotte in this one area you can point to, Minnesota has really struggled to defend the 3-point shot recently. So, I mean, with LaMelo Ball on the floor, we know Charlotte's capable of shooting threes. They were actually taking a lot of threes if we rewind back a few weeks ago. Recently, we haven't seen them shooting a lot, but with LaMelo Ball on the floor, we know Charlotte is capable of getting hot from out there. So I suppose there is a path to Charlotte having a good offensive game here, especially with the T-Wolves being on a back-to-back. but as a whole, especially if Rudy Gobert plays, should be tough to count on Charlotte to score points in this game. Here's the thing, though. On the other side of the court, I don't think I like this matchup for Minnesota's offense either. Now, Minnesota's offense has been pretty good. Don't get me wrong. They've been pretty solid offensively, but the weakness of this Hornets defense has been transition, and Minnesota never gets out and run. They're actually dead last, 30th in transition frequency. On the season, Charlotte against teams that don't get out and run a lot of fast breaks, against bottom 5 transition frequency offenses, 1-9 to the under, 7-14 to the under against bottom 10. So even more patterns pointing towards an under bet here. So up to this point, pretty much everything I'm looking at is pointing towards an under bet. Here's why I'm a little hesitant to bet an under. Charlotte's terrible defending the three-point line. They have been all year, and Minnesota's been launching threes all year. In fact, in the last 10 games, they're 6th in three-point frequency. They're a top 5 three-point shooting team in terms of volume. So how can we take an under with an offense that launches a lot of threes against one of the worst three-point defenses in the NBA? And it's the same thing on the other side. Minnesota's been struggling to defend the three-point line, and although Charlotte's been pretty awful shooting the three, LaMelo Ball could get hot, so kind of has me hesitant to pull the trigger on that under. And now you add on the fact that Rudy Gobert will not be back for this game. I don't know if I can get there with that under. That is my pick. I like the under in this one. It's been bet up to 224, so it looks like market's betting this total up. I disagree with the movement. Give me the under 224. I might end up betting this. I'll let you know on the live show, or you can go to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets and check there. Next, Portland on the road in Boston. Injuries on the Blazers side, still no DeAndre Ayton. Jeremy Grant is also on the report. He's listed as questionable. On the Celtics side, obviously we got Holiday and Porzingis. They've been banged up. Both are on their injury report, listed as questionable for this one. So after recording, there were injury updates to this game as well. The entire Boston Celtics starting lineup is now on the injury report. So you're about to hear me break down this game. Obviously, this was recorded before I knew the whole starting 5 was on the report. Yeah, I don't know, man. So let's talk about this matchup. And obviously, as I'm sure you know, the Blazers have been playing some basketball recently. In fact, if you look at the last 10 games, Boston and Portland are pretty close. In the last 10 games, the Blazers are 11th in offensive efficiency, 12th in defensive efficiency. The Celtics are 6th in offensive efficiency, 13th in defensive efficiency. So if you just isolate it to the last 10 games, these two teams are playing a similar level of basketball. Here's the thing, though. We can't forget about strength of schedule, because in the last 10 games, Portland is 23rd in strength of schedule, and the Celtics are 4th. In the last 5 games, it's even more dramatic than that. So, okay, on paper, in terms of efficiency, Portland and Boston have been playing similar level of basketballs as of late. Portland's played a much easier schedule than the Celtics have. Now, something I like for the Blazers here is actually one of their weaknesses, protecting the basketball. Portland's had problems protecting the basketball all year. In the last 10 games, even during their hot streak, they're still 26th in turnover rate. So Portland struggles to protect the basketball. Here's the thing, Boston doesn't force any turnovers. They're 29th in forced turnover rate in the last 10 games. On the season, the Celtics have not been profitable against teams like this. 7-14 against the spread against the bottom 10 offenses and turnover rate. Yeah, that's a little thin. I thought it was interesting enough to mention. Now, I'm not really sure what to expect from Portland offensively. They do attack the interior a lot. They're 6th in paint frequency in their last 10 games. Boston is normally an elite defense down low. Last few games, they've been kind of getting scored on the interior. But if you actually take a deeper look, I mean, Kristaps Porzingis has missed 3 of their last 5 games, so maybe that explains a little bit of the drop-off in the numbers. And on top of that, of the Celtics' last 5 games, they've played Denver, New York, and Cleveland. Those 3 offenses, 1st, 2nd, and 4th in the NBA in offensive efficiency. So in the last 5 games, the Celtics have played 3 top 5 offenses, and they've been missing their main big for 3 of those 5 games. So I'm not really worried about the Celtics' defensive numbers on the interior in the last 5 games. They should be fine. Portland should struggle to score down low in this one. Now, when we get to the other side of the court, this is where I actually like the matchup for the Blazers. They've played great defense against a three-point shot all year. That's not just with the hot streak. They've played great defense against a three-point shot all year. Obviously, that's a huge part of the Celtics offense. In fact, no team takes more three-point shots than the Boston Celtics. So it actually might be a tough matchup for Boston offensively. As far as getting it down on paper, it's really tough to evaluate this Portland team right now. My model specifically uses the full season numbers and the numbers from the last 10 games. And the problem with Portland is they were so bad earlier in the season. I mean, they were the worst team in the NBA for a stretch. Those data points are included in this, and the way Portland's been playing recently, part of me wants to just disregard them. So what I did for this handicap is I shifted it 4 points towards Portland to account for the data points earlier in the year when they were absolutely terrible. But even after that, I'm still showing Boston by 18. So kind of like the Celtics, obviously the injury question marks. I haven't bet this one. I also think the under is worth a look. It's just crazy to take an under right now because Portland's been running such a fast pace. So I think Boston's going to slow the game down, and the success Portland's had recently, getting into the paint, scoring on the interior, I think Boston's going to take that away. Especially if Porzingis plays. So leaning Celtics, leaning under, haven't bet it yet. Next. So yeah, like I said, that was all recorded before the update to the Celtics injury report. So I don't know, pass, I guess. Miami on the road in Cleveland. Davion Mitchell is on the injury report listed as questionable. Andrew Wiggins is on the injury report listed as questionable. Same goes for Ware. Same goes for Jaime Jaquez Jr. So a lot of question marks here on the Miami side. Still no Jovic. Jovic is still out. On the Cleveland side, we got Evan Mobley listed as questionable, but obviously Cleveland's on a back-to-back, so we won't have an updated injury report till later on. Quick update. So right after I recorded that, we got some injury updates on the Miami side. Jaime Jaquez Jr. has been ruled out. Andrew Wiggins has been ruled out. Ware has been ruled out as well. Davion Mitchell is still on the report listed as questionable. So some injury updates right after I recorded too. So what do we think of this matchup, Miami at Cleveland? In my opinion, the first question is this Miami defense back, or did they just play the Wizards? Because they looked excellent against Washington the other night. 91.8 defensive rating, 115.5 in the previous 10 games. Miami's been struggling on the defensive side of the ball. That's not what we've come to expect from the Miami Heat. We're going to find out fast because now they play the Cavs, and in case you haven't been following the NBA this year, Cleveland might have the best offense in the NBA. I mean, on paper, they do have the best offense in the NBA in terms of data. First in offensive efficiency on the season, first in the last 10 games, first in the last 5 games. Miami has struggled against elite offenses this year. Against top 5 offenses, they're 2-7-1 against the spread. Against top 10 offenses, 6-13-1 against the spread. So fading the Heat against elite offenses, extremely profitable this season. And not only is Cleveland arguably the best offense in the NBA right now, but they also might be the best three-point shooting offense in the NBA. They're third in three-point efficiency in the last 10 games, first in the last 5 games. Miami's been struggling defensively against the three-point shot, and check this out. Miami against the top 10 three-point shooting teams this year, 15-5 to the over. Cleveland against the bottom 10 three-point defenses this year, 14-5 to the over. So two trends heavily pointing towards the over there. So I'd say we can pretty comfortably count on the Cavs scoring points here against this Miami defense. It was the Wizards. Miami's going to need to show me more than a 1-game sample size before I start believing in that defense again. So yeah, Cleveland should be able to score points on the Miami defense. Now on the other side of the ball, it does get a little more interesting. We do have to mention that Cleveland's on a back-to-back here. They just played the Bulls earlier tonight. Cleveland on the season, 7-5 against the spread, 10-2 straight up on 0 days rest. So betting the Cavs on 0 days rest has still been profitable. But this Miami Heat team is going to be rested. And you know what? The Heat offense has been better. In their last 8 games, they have an offensive rating close to 117 compared to a 106 in the previous 8 games. So no question, we have enough of a sample size here to say Miami's playing better on the offensive side of the ball, significantly better. So Cleveland on a back-to-back, they know they're going to be able to score on Miami. I mean, I don't see any reason not to take the over here. So I ended up betting this one. I took the over at 226.5. Next game. Dallas is on the road in Milwaukee, and this Mavericks team, man, this sucks. Kyrie Irving is now out. PJ Washington is rolled out. Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, Dante Exum, Caleb Martin. This is crazy. I don't even know who's going to be getting the minutes here for Dallas. On the Milwaukee side, we got Giannis listed as probable. It looks like Kyle Kuzma's got a shot at coming back. He's listed as questionable. Still no Bobby Portis. I'm actually not sure when he's coming back, but I think he's been ruled out of this one. Look, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one. I tried putting it into the model, but it's doing its best to estimate who's going to get what minutes. I have this one at, 12, 11 and a half, 12. So at 9.5, I guess that's worth a bet. I put a few dollars on Milwaukee minus 9.5. But again, I really don't know. I bet Bucks minus 9.5 next. Sacramento on the road in Denver. Kings still going to be without Sabonis. He's been ruled out for this one. Malik Monk also on the injury report. He's listed as questionable. On the Denver side, we got a few question marks here, including Jokic. Aaron Gordon on the report as well. He's listed as questionable. Peyton Watson might be playing, though. He's been injured a lot this year. He's listed as questionable, and Strother is out. So let's get into this one. Kings Nuggets in Denver, and let's start with the fact that Denver hasn't looked all that great since the All-Star break. 2-4 against the spread, a 115 offensive rating, 116 defensive rating. Heading into the All-Star break, they were 6-0 straight up, 6-0 against the spread with a 131 offensive rating. So Denver was cooking heading into the break. Haven't looked that great coming out of the break. And the slumping defense could definitely be an issue here for the Nuggets because the Kings have been scoring 8th in offensive rating in their last 10 games, 4th in the last 5. On the season, the Nuggets are 1-7 against the spread against top 5 offenses. Now we're talking about Boston, Cleveland, New York, Oklahoma City. I mean, obviously the Kings are not on that level, but still a red hot offense is not what you want to see right now if you're Denver, who's kind of slumping on the defensive end. Something we need to point out, though, if we're talking about the last 5 games, the last 10 games, we got to talk about strength of schedule because the Kings are 30th in the last 10 games. They've played the easiest schedule in the NBA in the last 10. Denver is 9th. So, okay, the Kings have been playing well. They've also played an easy stretch of schedule. Now, the Kings have been competitive with Denver both times they saw them this year. Denver won both games and covered both games, but both were single-digit games. So the Kings were competitive with Denver both times they saw them. And I think a big reason for that is on the other side of the court. The Kings' defense, we know this year's Denver's offense loves to get out in transition. They're 5th in the NBA in points per game in transition. But look at the Kings' defense here. They do not let you run on them. They're 1st in the NBA in points per game allowed in transition. And even with Sabonis out, the Kings should still be able to battle with Denver on the glass. These are 2 top 5 rebounding teams here, both sides of the ball. Remember, the Kings have Valanciunas now. So even without Sabonis, this should still be a battle on the glass. So I completely understand why this line's sitting at 6.5. I know a lot of people are probably looking at this. Nuggets in Denver against the Kings, 6.5 is short. I completely get why it's there. Here's why I can't get there with Sacramento. I don't think the Kings defense in the paint could hold up here. They have been pretty good recently, but they played an injured Dallas team, Houston without Van Vliet, an injured Jazz team, an injured Hornets team. They played a very easy stretch of schedule. The Nuggets might be the best interior scoring offense in the NBA. You ready for this? The Kings this year against top 10 interior scoring teams, 2-13 against the spread. The Nuggets might be the most efficient scoring offense in the NBA on the interior. So I'm leaning Denver in this one. As long as I get Jokic, I mean, I want Jokic and Gordon. I will definitely lay 6.5 if I knew both those guys were playing. The line kind of leads me to believe that at least one of them won't be playing. So we'll see. But I'm leaning Denver in this one. Next. Oklahoma City on the road in Memphis. This is a big one here. Big Western Conference matchup. Injuries on the Thunder side. No Caruso. Isaiah Joe is also on the report. He's listed as questionable. On the Memphis side, no Jaren Jackson Jr. That's a tough one. Ja Morant is also on the report listed as questionable. Same goes for Santi Aldama. So let's get into this one. Oklahoma City has taken both of these matchups so far comfortably. 2 double-digit wins. One was in OKC, one was in Memphis. Ja Morant did sit the first game. He didn't play in the first one, but the second matchup, Memphis was at full strength. Oklahoma City played that game without Chet Holmgren and without Lou Dort in Memphis and still beat up on him. So no question, OKC's had Memphis number this year. As far as how these two teams are playing right now, we've got 2 elite offenses, 2 of the best offenses in the NBA, 2 defenses that are trending in the wrong direction quickly, particularly Memphis. They can't stop anybody as of late. In their last 8 games, check this out. This is so bad. A 121 defensive rating in their last 8 games. 0-7-1 against the spread. The last time the Grizzlies covered a number, February 11th against the Suns. That was before the All-Star break. Memphis has not covered a spread since before the All-Star break. And now you add on the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to miss this game, probably their most important defensive piece against Oklahoma City, who might be the best offense in the NBA, them or Cleveland, you'd have to say. I just don't know where the stops are coming from here for Memphis. This is an Oklahoma City offense that's been lighting up bad defenses all year. On the season against bottom 5 defenses, OKC is 9-1-1 against the spread, 8-3 to the over. So pretty much every time Oklahoma City sees a bad defense, they score 130 points, they cover, the game goes over the total. Memphis is most definitely a bad defense right now. But here's the thing, on the other side of the floor, you can make a lot of the same points. Oklahoma City's defense hasn't been all that great. They're also missing a key defensive piece in Caruso. And the Grizzlies, as bad as they've been, I mean, it's pretty much the defense that's letting them down. The offense has been fine. So as much as I want to bet Oklahoma City, I think the over might be a better look here. Both of these teams are top 5 in terms terms of transition, so we should see a ton of fast breaks in this game. Look at all the trends pointing towards an over here. Memphis against teams that run out in transition, top 5 in frequency, 7-0 to the over. Top 10 in frequency, 14-5 to the over. Memphis against fast-paced teams, top 5 in pace, 7-1 to the over. Top 10 in pace, 12-5 to the over. So there's a lot of trends pointing towards the over here. So I bet the over in this one. I bet it as soon as I saw the line open up. Got 247.5. Give me the over next game. The red hot Detroit Pistons on the road in LA to play the Clips. Still no Jaden Ivey for the Pistons. Tobias Harris is also on the report listed as questionable on the Clippers side. Unfortunately, still no Norman Powell. Good news for the Clips, though. They might be getting Ben Simmons and Derrick Jones Jr. back. They're both on the report listed as questionable. Both had been out previously.
So another game where after I was done recording, we had a major injury update here. Kawhi Leonard's been ruled out of this one. So obviously the breakdown you're about to watch, I recorded before I knew Kawhi Leonard was out. And honestly, I wish I grabbed the Pistons at -1.5 because that's what I'm about to pick at the end of this. Wish I knew.
So what do we think about this matchup? Well, if you've been following the NBA, you know the Pistons have been much better than the Clippers recently. In the last 10 games, Detroit is 9-1. Straight up, 8-2 against the spread. They're first in defensive efficiency. The Detroit Pistons, first in defensive efficiency in the last 10 games, fifth in offensive efficiency. In the last 10 games, this is a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. They are 28th in strength of schedule in that span. So maybe we take those numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt. But still, we don't want to take away from what the Pistons have done. Detroit looks great. Meanwhile, the Clippers look like, they look awful. In the last 10 games, they're 2-8 against the spread. So will the Pistons keep rolling here against the Clips? Will the Pistons defense stay red hot here against the Clippers offense? And in my opinion, it should be another good matchup for the Pistons defensively. We're going to see a lot of isolation. Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, a lot of ISO here. The Clippers are first in the NBA in isolation frequency, and that's good news for the Pistons. This is a top 10 defense against ISO this year, and against teams that run ISO, top 5 in frequency, 7-2 against the spread, including a game against the Clippers just a couple weeks ago. In Detroit, the Pistons beat them 106-97. The Pistons' weak spot defensively has been the pick and roll. This is actually a bottom 5 defense against the pick and roll this year, but that's actually more good news because the Clippers don't run many pick and rolls. I believe they're like 25th or 26th in frequency this year. So you take the Clippers slumping offense. There's no Norman Powell. You add on the fact that it might not be a good matchup for him on paper. I mean, how can we trust the Clippers right now? In their last 7 games, they're 0-7 against the spread, 110 offensive rating, 116 defensive rating. They're just flat out not playing good basketball right now. So in all honesty, how do we not take Detroit here? I mean, normally in an instance like this, where one team is 9-1 in their last 10, and the other team can't win a basketball game, I would say, hey, maybe the market has overcorrected itself, but it really hasn't corrected itself at all. I mean, Detroit's laying 1.5. They were laying 3 to the Clippers a couple weeks ago. So the market really hasn't even moved much on these two teams. So, I mean, I don't know how you don't take Detroit here. Pistons -1.5.
So as far as the current number, it would still be Detroit at -4.5. Kind of like the under a little bit too. I haven't bet this game as of yet though.
Live show 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you're able to make it, we'll go through every single game on the board. We'll go through some college basketball. Got Moneyline Mac coming on. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. If you want to go see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com. Click open bets, then click on sauce. You'll see all mine as well as everyone else on the staff here. Let's have ourselves a nice Wednesday night. Please remember to bet responsibly. Hit me up in the Discord if you need me.